farming industry in Scotland is worth over £2 billion. Globally, we have a huge appetite for salmon. If you think about it, it's a way of cheating the system. If you try and manipulate a natural environment for long enough, then eventually you're going to come into trouble. Salmon are incredible creatures. They have an extremely complex and epic life history. They make these huge migrations upstream, sometimes thousands of miles back to their spawning grounds. They've evolved over millions of years. But people don't think about the complexities of what it takes to make salmon. In Scotland, there are over 250 salmon farm sites. I've seen myself how important the salmon farming industry is for the people in Scotland. But we now know that salmon farming is not what it seems. And we're in a lot of trouble. In the UK, we hold about 70% of the world's population of grey seals. I've spent a lot of time in the water with them. They're curious, they're social. They have to be one of the UK's most iconic marine mammals. So you can imagine how shocked I was when I learned that salmon farms are shooting seals. Seals are a natural predator, and a natural predator of salmon. Just a few days ago, we got a call from here in Shetland on the island of Yell that 5 dead seals have washed up, so we had to come and see this for ourselves and with our own eyes. The salmon farm came back and said they're now investing millions of pounds into more effective predator nets. And for a short while, I believed them. Hi David, my name is Lizzie Daly. I read the article in Shetland News about the changes that you're making at aquaculture, and I'd really like to chat to you perhaps about changes that are going on up here. As you probably know, there's been some more dead seals that have washed up not far from here.
All we know is that these seals have appeared on the coastline near to Cook Aquaculture Salmon Farm. I mean, 8 months ago we were told that there would be no more seals being shot in the North Isles of Shetland because they'd introduced these new nets. And from the evidence that we're seeing here in Yell and Unts, it doesn't seem to be the case. Scientists from the Scottish Marine Animal Stranding Scheme have been up and taken samples, and they have said that, you know, the deaths of at least 2 of the seals are consistent with ballistic trauma. It's easy to jump to the conclusion that, you know, the salmon farm was responsible for it, but we've not heard back from the salmon farm.
Feel pretty gutted about the whole thing. And how can you possibly have confidence in the salmon industry when this is going on? How are we going to, trust them ever?
I feel like we're back at square one, to be honest. For me, the idea that when you put a readily available food source in an environment with a natural predator and then that predator eats it, so you shoot that animal, is just absurd. Double netting is an effective, non-lethal alternative to keeping seals out of salmon farms. It works. I can't say for sure whether those seals were shot by that salmon farm, but at the same time, we don't have answers. Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't know if you want to say it.
Okay, well, we'll head in.
Head in and I'll join you.
And then we'll chat. Okay.
I've been diving around the salmon farms around here for many years, and I've seen the impacts on the seabed.
The conditions of a salmon farm can't mimic the complexities of the natural environment in which salmon live.
We'll stay on the same level. Are you going to check out the base?
Economically, it makes sense to put thousands of these salmon in one place.
Yeah, okay.
That's it.
But when you're taking these fish and placing them on such a large scale, it's going to impact our environment beyond repair.
As you descend to the seabed, when you go down near a salmon farm, the seabed is covered in what looks like white yogurt. This is called the dead zone, and only 2 species of worms can survive in such conditions. It's covered in white bacterial mats. And this bacterial mat is indicative of highly polluted seabeds. And when the organic pollution gets even worse, you get black, anoxic mud where almost nothing can survive. And these are very dangerous conditions.
The understanding around the impact of salmon farming is not a new thing. We know of sea lice, deformities, parasites, disease spreading through salmon farms, but there is a tipping point.
I'm John, was a salmon farmer for 7 years. As someone who has worked in the salmon farming industry, sadly I've seen the extent of the environmental issues they cause.
Looking at this farm here, the one where we filmed all the dead and dying fish.
Just last year, there were reports of a disease outbreak in a salmon farm on the west coast of Scotland.
Millions of pounds are spent each year in response to disease outbreaks at Scottish salmon farms.
The salmon farm were hauling out tons of these dead and dying salmon. It's an absolute disaster. At the bottom of these pens, there were more dead and dying fish. The disease not only wiped out that entire salmon farm, but it spread to other farms.
What's worse is that this scene happens all the time. As the demand for salmon is only getting larger and larger, salmon farms are going to face more problems.
But because these things are happening underneath the surface, Nobody knows about it. We have completely lost our connection to this ecosystem.
When you see events like this, you can really see how unstable this industry is.
So, yeah. I've always wanted to see the impact of one of these farms with my own eyes. So we got on our wetsuits and we went to that same salmon farm. I knew we were going to see something different, but I didn't realise it was going to be that bad. Every single pen on every single salmon farm were completely empty. When you think that each salmon farm site holds thousands of tons of salmon, and every single one of them were empty. It was an extremely eerie scene.
Porpoise, dolphins and whales are highly intelligent animals who use their sensitive hearing to communicate and to echolocate to find food. And so, for good reason, they're protected by Scottish law. It's an offence to deliberately or recklessly disturb or injure any porpoise, dolphin or whale. This farm here is using at least 14 of the loudest devices, and this is really significant because they told the planners that they were going to have 2 of the lowest powered ADDs, and they ended up with at least 14, maybe as many as 20 of the highest powered ADDs. These ADDs output between 179 and 196 decibels. Now we know that porpoises are disturbed at 100 decibels, that 96% of porpoises are displaced at 113 decibels, and that porpoises can suffer temporary hearing damage at 145 decibels. You can hear these acoustic deterrent devices from several kilometers away. They are excluding porpoises, dolphins and whales from really important inshore feeding grounds. If you deafen a porpoise, dolphin or whale, it's a death sentence. That animal will starve.
We are on a path of destruction. These waters have tremendous value for the people here. In order to succeed, we need our industry, our river systems, and our salmon to be as healthy as possible. But the industry isn't being honest about the extent of these issues.
This huge industry is coming at a huge price, not only for our seabed and our seals, but also for our salmon. As the demand for salmon is only getting larger and larger, salmon farms are going to face more problems.
The good thing is that we can make change. We can influence how our industry works. all that is needed to stop seal shooting and to stop cetaceans suffering from ADDs is for farms to fit double nets.
We've been campaigning for many years to bring about recovery in Scottish seas. And what's really encouraging now, there are coastal community groups setting up all over the place because people are fed up with our seas continuing to decline and nothing being done about it.
We can keep growing and pushing our understanding of how we live and how we consume, but it has its limits.